most podcasts that I really like, they don't start. They just start talking.
Okay, but this is the first one.
All right.
So you can't just start talking, or we could. You could just,
All right.
just record it.
Hi, this is Jessica. This is the Holdback podcast.
And I'm Jana with ASM Royal Tails.
And
you didn't say who you were from.
Oh, the corner at the end of the street. Just kidding. Hare Hall Farm. I might edit that out. Might not. Depends on how much free time I have tomorrow. We'll see. I might edit all of that out. You don't know.
What does the holdback rack mean to you?
To me, it's sort of like almost like multifaceted good name for a podcast. Like the first most sort of like visceral response is the holdback is like the best part of your collection. You know, it's your baby coming from your room, knowing your feeding schedule and barometric pressure. You know its mom, you know its dad, you know the lineage and how it grew. So it's like the heart of your collection and the future of your collection all at the same time. And it's more powerful and meaningful than a female you buy in or a male, power male or whatever, because that's what you're really working for, is the best, and you're keeping it. In the context of like the name of a podcast, what are we doing here? We're looking to like consolidate the best thoughts and the best sort of methodologies to have a successful herpetocultural business. So we're holding back the ideas that work and we'll let go of the ones that don't. So it's part of that sort of ensuring the integrity of like the collection of what we're doing. That's what it felt like it meant to me. Like both a reiteration of how I run my collection and then like how I would like to running my collection together.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I agree with the first. I have a few things that it means to me too. The first, taking what you need and letting the rest go. That's essentially, how you should accumulate your knowledge of the business and also the art and story that you're trying to create with the snakes that you're creating. Like what image are you trying to project onto this art form that we are involved in? Notoriety and prestige of like what's in your rack, and then like transferring that into a podcast, getting your name out there and networking. For me, it kind of mirrors that. I also like tease you about how everything is a holdback and holdbacks are life. And then also that's our podcast. So it just kind of makes me giggle as well, because I feel like that's kind of a joke between us.
I think there's like a personal ethos where you're like, I need to keep everything.
Right.
Royal Constrictor Designs shares that ethos. Like, can't let any of it go. And now it has 4,000 snakes. But
I was just gonna say, it's 1,500 for sale. Like, dude, list those. Come on,
quick, please. A lot of people get into a situation where they have to sell their best stock to like make rent or whatever, and you don't ever want to sell the fundamental best part of your production, your collection, and what sort of defines you as a keeper. So keep what's in your rack. Keep it in there.
Yeah. Oh, I've experienced that the hard way. I don't know. Lessons learned, newbie, hard knocks. Like, oh, wow, this is worth a lot of money. I'm going to sell it. And then you sell it and you're like, why is that not in my rack still?
Yeah. And it's hard because you knew, I don't know, it was what you wanted anyway. You just thought you were going to make more, or you had more, or there was more coming down the pipes.
Yeah. So also don't sell until you know what your season's doing. I feel like that's a good lesson too.
Yeah. Well, first seasons are full of lessons. Maybe too many lessons.
First seasons are rough.
Yeah.
They're supposed to be rough.
And I bet we'll probably do that. Just like what bad things you can expect when you're trying to breed.
Season out.
Yeah.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah,
that's a whole other conversation.
Why are you doing the podcast?
Because you're a nag? podcast trying to find my footing in the industry, trying to find my footing as a breeder, trying to expand what I do understand about the industry and the business and how to put together a reptile breeding business. I enjoy discussing those kinds of things with you, and I feel like I learn a lot because I am new, and I feel like we have such a different knowledge or a different way that our knowledge has formed, and you have this much wider base because I have a very narrow, like almost like the pop culture of the ball python industry, whereas you have like a broad understanding of the entire reptile industry rather than just ball pythons. And so I don't know, I enjoy it. I wanted to do it. You kept asking, so I said yes. So here I am. What
Uh,
about you?
I think this is probably like my favorite format for absorbing, I don't know, reptile related content. It feels like a natural extension of my continued reptile journey to try to share what I do know and sort of provide the service that I would like that I don't hear. There's a lot of really great podcasts, in my opinion, that I do like, but for some reason, there's no two women talking podcasts about reptiles. There's Modern Medusa, which is an interview podcast that we've talked about. That's fine, but I wanted to like limit interviews and talk mostly about like what's the trajectory of a collection and how are you managing your business and how are you managing your collection and your expectations as you go into a season, because those are the kinds of questions that are the most germane to my day to day, and I would like to share them with the people who are also sort of like in the trenches, not just like casually keeping their third crested gecko. No offense to casual third crested gecko keepers. Your journey is different than mine right now, and mine is with the intent of being a profitable company, and not 100% sure the best way to execute that in my personal situation. So any amount of like sort of working through it can only help, because there's always something to be learned from somebody. So we'll figure it out.
Absolutely.
Next segment was personal stories. Did you want to go first? It could be as short and sweet, or maybe not,
Oh, short and sweet. It's not
or
short and
as
sweet, and
long
you're
and terrible as you need
it's
it to be.
terrible, and you're gonna make fun of me, and I'm never gonna live it down. Oh, crap. Okay. So, COVID. Thank you,
You're a COVID
COVID.
breeder.
I'm a
Just say
COVID
it.
breeder. Dang it. I know they've got such a bad rap, and it's probably well deserved. And I'm hoping in a couple years I will prove that I'm not a COVID baby breeder that's going to, like a baby boomer of COVID in the reptile industry. I was supposed to go to nursing school because my baby was finally old enough, and then COVID hit, and my kids were all home doing school, and I was doing that instead of school. So was really bored and was ready to get out of the house and do something, but I was stuck there because of COVID and because my kids needed me at home. My kid hated my guts, my oldest, and I had to be her school teacher basically and force her into doing her assignments and her Zooms. And so to bond with her, we started watching Snake Discovery, who is, I'm sure all of you know who she is, but Emily with Snake Discovery is one of my daughter's heroes. And so we started watching that together as a way to like, as a positive thing rather than all the negative that we were having to go through with COVID and with her doing online schooling. We decided we were going to get a snake. So together we were doing research on the two most popular are corn snake and ball pythons. Anybody that's listening that doesn't know that. And so we were doing a research project together, part of like homeschooling COVID crazy. While researching whether we wanted a corn snake or a ball python, I came across a infamous YouTuber. Gosh, seriously, you're never gonna let me live this down. So Chris Hardwick has a YouTube video that is how to make $2,000 a month breeding ball pythons. I'm sure most of you have heard of it or seen it, and I'm sure that that spurred a lot of the 2020 breeders into breeding. But I watched that and it was late at night, and I looked at my husband and I was like, I could do that. And he just looked at me and shook his head because I've done a lot of crazy things in my life. So he never knows if I'm kidding or if I'm serious. So from that video, I started researching breeding and morphs and going down the rabbit hole of reptile breeding. And I was like, no, I really could do this. I really think that I would be good at it. I think that I would really enjoy it. And so at that point, my daughter had decided that she wanted a ball python after all the research that we had done. And so we got our first ball python. And then within 2 weeks, I think we had 15. I mean, like now I have 150 and it's been 18 months. So that is kind of how I got started.
It's a
Jumped in with
lot.
both feet. Yeah.
Did you like reptiles when you were a kid?
So we had a substitute teacher at our elementary school who was a reptile keeper. And so he would come, and if he substituted your class for like 2 or 3 days in a row, if your class was good, he would bring in his snakes. And he had the really big ones. And I was a kid, so I don't know if it was a Burmese python or if it was a boa. I don't know. I don't remember, but it was huge and it was albino. And he would like let like 5 or 6 kids hold it at one time. And I just remember thinking like that was the coolest thing ever. And then when I was a teenager, I had friends that had snakes. And whenever I'd go over there, they'd be like, you just came over to hang out with my snakes. I would like hold their snakes and stuff. But I never owned a reptile until 18 months ago.
It's kind of crazy. I'll be honest.
It is kind of crazy. That's how I roll.
Most people have like childhood from whatever trajectory where they're always like in the swamp somewhere. You're
Nope.
very unique, I think, that you just like were like, all right, as an adult, I'm gonna get 175 snakes for fun.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
For fun.
No, that's cool. Did you get mutation creation early on in that like YouTube journey, or like a lot of people started with like Brian Barczyk if they started liking reptile stuff like 3 years ago, like they started with Barczyk, Animal Bites TV, but you're a COVID baby. Billy was pretty strong like in the 2020 year. Do you feel like he was a sort of inspiration for ball pythons specifically?
I know that he's like that anybody that's anybody doesn't respect him. But Chris Hardwick was the person that I started watching, and it wasn't until probably 6 months into it that I
Just watched
started
anybody
to
else?
understand that
Oh,
he wasn't the recognized
expert?
local genius that I thought he was. Because coming from no reptile base, no reptiles growing up, no awareness of the industry or awareness of reptiles in general, he was very narrow, and he lays things out with the genetics and other things, how my brain works. And so it was a fast and dirty way to get, I feel like, just some basic grasp on ball pythons, and obviously experience and branching out into people who are actually making an impact on the industry was really important. And it wasn't, probably, like I said, I probably had 40 snakes by the time I started watching other people like JKR and Mutation Creation. I think that's when I started my Instagram. And so then I really understood because I was on Facebook, and then you go to Instagram, and then you're like, oh, here's the reptile community.
Yeah, there's
um,
definitely something on Facebook, but I don't know what it is.
yeah, I'm not sure either. And so it's just like, as time has progressed, I've just like slowly been able to widen my view, and I can look back and laugh at that now. But at the time, like, it made sense to me, and I feel like I've stumbled drunkenly from A to B, but I'm not terribly failing. So I'm okay with where I've come from to where I am now.
Awesome. It's interesting that you, I don't know, like the infectious love of bull snakes didn't like trigger from like snake discovery, and instead it was ball pythons. Like it, if you were watching Snake Discovery first, it could have been colubrids first.
It could have been colubrids, or it could have been hogs.
Yeah.
My daughter just loves hogs, but we weren't going into it with the idea of breeding. We were going into it as the idea of one snake for my daughter, And so we approached it like a report almost. Let's do some research. This is an animal we're going to invite to our home and we're going to keep for a long time, and they live a really long time. And so we watched, oh, now his name's escaping me. The really sweet guy that does all the reptile videos, like
Clint?
Clint. Thank you. Yes. So we watched a lot of his videos because he's been on Snake Discovery. So we had seen him. And so we looked him up.
Clint's
And,
got good
he does,
content.
he's got good content, especially for kids. Like he lays it out very simply. And so it was things I was able to watch with her. And he does like the top 5 reptiles and the top 5 snakes. And um, bull snakes, anybody that knows anything is telling you that that's not your first snake. That's not your first reptile. That's not how you start out with reptiles. And neither are hognose. And so any information that we were getting was saying that's not it. She wants a Brazilian rainbow boa too, like the rainbow snake. She's 9. At the time she was 8, and rainbows are life. So that was on her list too. But we don't have a Brazilian rainbow boa still. So it's just we researched it, and those are the 2 most popular in the country and the 2 gateway snakes, as I like to call them.
When did you decide to make a corporation or like make it a business out of it? Like right when you decided to buy 15, it was immediately a business in your mind, or
So we bought my daughter's snake on Morph Market actually, which it's even blows my mind that I was able
that's
to
high
like
level for a
find
new
Morph
person.
Market.
Yeah.
Right. I don't even know how. It was totally just, I guess, meant to be. And so we bought her snake, but the breeder was out of town on vacation. And I think she was brand new, like out of the egg, so she still had to eat. It was almost 6 weeks before we got her from the time we purchased her. And between that time and getting her, it had changed from a research project for a pet, and I was in full business mode from that point on. So we got her, and like I said, 2 weeks later, I think we had 15 snakes. It's really funny. Now it's escaping me who I got her from. Saul's Balls in New York. He totally was like a first time snake mom with all the ridiculous dumb questions. And now he comments on my breeding page, and he can't believe that I went from this dumbass that didn't know anything about ball pythons to somebody that was breeding that quickly. But it literally was that fast that it changed from like, oh, I'm going to do this as a pet for my kid to this industry is amazing and I want to be part of it.
You're in a good boat with a lot of other people. COVID breeder jokes aside.
Right.
It's kind of like scary how easy it is to collect a large number of animals that you may or may
It is
not
ridiculous
know how to care
how
for.
easy
Like you
and
obviously
fast.
did, but like other people. So how was the husband? How did he feel? Was he on a journey of?
He was on his own journey of either I'm going to have to divorce this crazy ass lady or I'm going to have to get on board. There was a point because the plan had never been to be big. It was always like really low key. I didn't have any understanding of like, well, not any. I had a basic understanding of the high end market, and I had a very, very limited budget. And he was like, here's your little tiny budget over here. Figure it out. Whatever you do with that's cool. And so like I was like, oh, I can't afford like visuals. I can't afford, any really cool stuff that I have now. So
Spoiler alert, he came around.
spoiler alert, he came around huge. But there was a point where he said, if you buy any more snakes, I'm going to cook it for dinner and eat it.
Ooh.
And so there's actually a YouTube video on my channel that Ariana, my oldest, and I are at FedEx, and she's like, "Guys, we are on like a secret mission, and we were picking up 2 more snakes from FedEx." And she was like, "Don't tell my dad, or he'll eat it." And
Was this like were you vlogging for a bit?
we were vlogging for a
Okay.
bit. My daughter has aspirations of being a YouTuber or a reptile educator like Emily from Snake Discovery. And so for probably the first 6 months ish, we vlogged a lot. We vlogged a lot of unboxings, and we vlogged her doing little tutorials. And then, I mean, at that point, It was a lot of work and I had a lot of snakes. We haven't vlogged recently, but eventually I hope to get back into it now that life is returning more to normal. It's one of my favorite vlogs because she's like, "Don't tell dad." And it's totally like captures the essence of how he was not on board. But then probably it was about a year into it. We were producing clutches. I was selling babies. I was successful. I had social media. We had over 1,000 followers. I feel like I was hitting these milestones that I had set out for myself. And so he was seeing, oh, this isn't some weird, wacko, crazy.
I was gonna say
So,
MLM. You didn't
right.
join
Well, it is.
LuLaRoe, and it is, but it's like kind of.
It totally is. And he knows that that's not my personality. And so if I did LuLaRoe or Mary Kay or something like that, I would not be successful. But this is different. This is right up my alley.
You're not a boss babe?
No, I never did like the bags or the makeup or the, I know, Tupperware, whatever people are selling. That is not me. I am not that kind of
good
human.
I fucking hate MLMs. It's like
oh
the
my gosh,
most
so bad,
disgusting, predatory thing I could think of, except for like actual
so like
murder or something.
unfriend, all the gross. Anyway, and so that's just not my personality, and he knows that. And this is not the first business that I have started, and so I think he was just a little leery. But then we had some really good conversations, and he's come around, and he's fully on board and fully supportive, and has seen me starting to be successful. And I think that he's having some better trust. And we had a good conversation, I don't know, after the first reptile show in July. When I came home and handed him a giant wad of cash. It goes a long way to getting someone on your side. I asked him, I was like, do you just feel like I'm going to fail, or do you feel like I can't do this? And he said some really awesome things, which I really needed to hear. He's like, I never expect you to fail. He's like, anything you put your mind to, you rock at. He's like, I don't trust the market. Like, just in general, markets are unstable, and when you enter into an investment type market, there is the potential that you're going to lose money, and or the market is going to do things you can't control. And so his fear was he didn't understand how long the ball python market had been out there. He didn't understand, yes, it has moods and it goes up and down, and different morphs can be valued at higher dollars and then crash. He just thought that this was like a 2020 COVID weird
thing that happened,
reaction thing that happened, not with me, but the ball python industry in general, because that was our only exposure to it, is once I had started looking into it in 2020. And so I'll listen to like podcasts and YouTubes and all kinds of things when we're in bed at night. And so he hears them while he's playing video games or reading a book or whatever. And he has heard me also talking enough that now I feel like he has enough knowledge that he's starting to feel a lot better about it.
Good job. I don't know, any industry that's based on people's like made up belief of the value of a living thing is always sort of susceptible to like the whims of whatever. The moon has changed. Oh, it's $5. This has been true for like pigeons and designer dogs and whatever else. To me, the industry feels like incredibly old, like as old as people who were taking peacocks from India and bringing them to Europe and being like, here's a tropical bird. It's pretty crazy. You want it for your yard? Give me a gold nugget, thanks. So
absolutely,
the exotic pet industry, people want a little piece of nature, whatever way they decide they want to enjoy that, whether it's like a houseplant or a snake or a Bengal cat hybrid, or you're the Tiger King and you want a bunch of tigers and you want to live in Oklahoma and do your thing. Like, people want nature because it's beautiful and they sort of want to possess it. We're just part of that like legacy where weird monkeys keep other animals for fun. I'm glad he's on board with weird monkeys keeping other animals for fun.
Yes, but just because weird monkeys keep other animals for fun does not translate into the stability of the industry as a whole and the price stability. Because like you said, it's totally arbitrarily decided upon prices that how do you even know? Like, how do you even decide what something is valued at? And so that to him, there was no concrete. I could say this snake is worth this much. This snake is worth this much, because it's literally moment to moment arbitrary pricing. And that, I think that was the hardest piece for him to understand. But also, we had a male who ended up being a lot of genes that we didn't expect. And my genetic stripe male, we bought him as a lesser banana genetic stripe with the possibility of having GHI or cinnamon, because that was in the pairing. But you couldn't tell because he's like a brown slug. And we hatched out a clutch from him, and he got both extra genes. And so we had a clutch that prior to that, which was, fireflies and pastels. So the whole clutch was worth, like $500. And then we had this other clutch, and one snake was worth $2,000. And so talking to him about that, about it takes the same effort to make this $2,000 snake as it did to make this $500 clutch. Like, the snake doesn't care what its value is. You still have to feed its parents and mate its parents, and you still have to hatch that hatchling, and you still have to feed that hatchling. It doesn't matter what its morph is. All of your personal and investment and time is the same, no matter the value. And so it makes more sense to put your personal time and value into something that's more profitable to you in the end. And I think that might have been the tipping point, is when he saw the difference between what I was producing based on the funds that I had available to get parents to produce that clutch, what values they were, as opposed to this one higher end male, and how much his babies were worth. He was like, oh, okay. And then finally he just was like, yeah, let's do this. And we sat down and we figured out a budget, and we got into some really cool projects.
The ball python market itself is super unique in that it's the most fungible species. I can figure out the price of a ball python easier than anything else, because there are more transactions total across, and then public transactions on morph market. Try to figure out the price of a rare locality boa that's only bred 5 times a year. Just guess of any species that you want to bank on potential success based on past pricing. This is the best one for that, in that way, to convince someone that the market is real. You will get some price equivalent to that if you also posted your animal. There's obviously no good commodity price for a snake. It would be the wholesale price. Like a cow. If it was a breeding cow, you're cool, but then it breaks its leg. You need to put it down, but you can still eat it. So the commodity price would be its meat price.
Right.
There's no leather equivalents of snakes or something.
Right.
Yeah. So that is the hardest part about the market, is the wholesale price for ball pythons is probably lower than the cost of production for that animal. So you have to be riding some version of the morph craze, however you interpret that statement. And a lot of people don't like to do that, and so they do other things, but we're here to talk about ball pythons mostly.
Hey, how did you get into it?
I don't know.
You
want
don't
the
know.
longest story of all time? Or the
yeah, I
story?
do. No, the longest story of all time. I told you my longest story, and I admitted to the Chris Hardwick part.
Hardwick!
Your turn.
I'll bring that up. At least
I know you will.
3 to 4 times a year at barbecues.
I know. Anytime
bars.
we're around other breeders, you're just going to be like, yeah, this 2020 COVID
it's
baby.
Fine.
I
watched
love.
Chris Hardwick a little bit just to see what was going on. He seemingly can figure out how to talk to himself successfully and look like he was sort of entertaining another person. I think that's a skill that you can commend him for. He's talking a lot by himself, and it's actually really hard to talk for 20 or 30 minutes by yourself about whatever, but somehow
Absolutely.
he has the skill to have a coherent conversation with no one. So I think that's why he's successful, because he figured out how to make a lot of content alone with whatever way he could, which some of it was maybe better than others, but it's fine.
Never living it down.
I was one of those dinosaur people, born already a paleontologist. I was already one as a fetus, climbing out of the uterus, ready. Give me all the dinosaurs now. I think I watched Land Before Time like 7,000 times as a 2-year-old, and I remember it perfectly. It was amazing. And then you like have your paleontological ambitions for a long time, and you're like, but they're all dead. And then you like get crushed as a 5-year-old because you can't reclaim the glory of the past. And so like that like sucks the joy out of it. So then you start to do other sort of animals. I always knew I wanted to be a scientist. It was 100% clear to me from the beginning. I just didn't know like the class of animals. I was really into lions for a long time. Liked that they were matriarchal and the females were in charge. And I wanted to go to Africa, live in the Serengeti, and study like predator-prey interactions. That sort of like faded out in middle school, and I got a pet snake at 12. It was a common boa, so a Colombian, probably a mutt, common boa from a pet store, and that was just like a pet for I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 years, and then hold on, what year is this? 2000 and maybe 2000. 2000. So I'm like 16 in high school. I have a pet boa. He's pretty cool. But then like it like clicks somehow that like that's like the best pet I've ever had. And he gets bigger and he's like cool and you can hold him and do stuff with him. And then I get on the internet because I think our gateway computer got shipped in and we turned on AOL. And I was like, oh, let me just check out this snake stuff on the internet. You get into like 2000s internet, which is kingsnake.com, fauna classifieds once you get like really into it, but you don't know that that's there yet. It's just kingsnake.com. And then there was like standalone forums. And my standalone forum ended up being redtailboas.net, which doesn't exist anymore. And I guess hasn't existed for a long time. So when I came back to the hobby, I was like, where's redtailboas.net? And they're like, it doesn't exist. You're late. It's been gone for a long time. Facebook killed it. But that used to be my jam. I wasn't a moderator, but I was like basically a moderator. Like I would dutifully go and post the correct answer to every snake question, like new person snake question, like the right answers for that time.
Self-imposed moderator.
Yeah, that was me. I don't get any credit. And I like met some cool people online, started to like do that phase of people's keeping where they like get 1 or 2 of a lot of things to like check them out. Leopard geckos, anoles. I like rescued an iguana and then rehomed it. Got a import ball python that had ticks on it from Triple L Reptiles and it died immediately. So that was the whole ball python story for me at that point.
That didn't throw you off of ball pythons?
It did at the time. Like eventually I was just like, I had some like Everglades rat snakes, some black rat snakes, corn snakes. So that's sort of where my like rat snake sort of interest
now at this
comes
point
from.
At this point in the industry, are these all wild caught or were they being captive bred?
A lot of this was captive bred.
Oh,
if you went to like Havre de Grace or like White Plains or Hamburg or all the like old shows back east, it was like a 50-50 split of just like imported dying animals and like actual captive bred animals. Because there's like a history of colubrid breeding that goes back to 70s, 80s because they breed relatively easily here.
Okay. And then the ball pythons being captive bred. So yours was an import? It wasn't captive bred?
No, that was
one that died?
Yeah, that was the time when ball pythons were still fresh. Like I can remember going to like the Manassas show and seeing a clown for like 10,000 or so. It was just when there was like 5, 6 breed or cultivars or whatever morphs.
What year are we at now?
Maybe
we were at early 2000s.
We're still in early 2000s.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's like my high school. So like from 2000 to 2004. I'm going like as a minor. My mom just like took me wherever, let me do whatever. I don't know why she tolerated this sort of behavior. I'm like
collect all the reptiles.
Yeah, I got a bunch. Like I would do like, you know, chores or whatever, birthday money, like convince my mom like I really need this. It's really important. Whatever. I did it all. And I would sell stuff back. I'd sell stuff so I'd make some money. I had my first litter of boas in 2002. So I was a sophomore in high school. And And I sold them
That's
to like a pet
incredible.
store, and I sold some to some random people on Fauna. And this was before Ship Your Reptiles or Reptiles Express. You had to just like, you were technically supposed to certify yourself with FedEx independently, but nobody did. They just shipped it and
On the DL.
hoped for the best. And there weren't like reliable foam insert boxes you could buy, so you had to like make it yourself out of foam you got from Lowe's. And there was no heat packs. I don't know how anything lived, but it did. It was fine. Like, I had my first adult female boa that I bought to breed my like first boa too. I bought her as an adult from Fauna for $80 plus $40 shipping. I remember it because it was a lot for like, a
For a kid.
15-pound snake to be shipped
Right.
in a big box. Back in my day, you could ship for not, $10 trillion, which is how much it costs now to ship a 7x7.
$10 trillion.
Yes, inflation's gone crazy. Yeah, and it's also stuck in Indy for a couple extra days for fun, for your convenience.
For your convenience, let's go to Indy again.
Yeah, one more time. So that was sent to me in a plain cardboard box, no padding, just a whole 8-foot boa female. She had mites, but I got her out. I left her actually loose. This is a crazy story. Don't do anything I did as a high schooler, by the way. Anybody listening? Nobody. Your kids?
Snake babies in high school. I don't care if you did it wrong. That's amazing.
So I bred the male and the female in my mom's like master bathroom with just like the heat turned all the way up on the radiant heat on the floor, and they were just like roamed around the master bathroom loose for like a couple months until like we could build real like 6x2x2 cage that was going to be like her cage, and then he had his own cage.
Your mother is a saint.
I know, she's awesome. It's crazy.
Getting jiggy in her bathroom and she's totally fine.
Well, she used like the other bathroom or whatever, but I got like the bathroom that didn't have any like weird holes in the cabinets or whatever that they could like go up into the walls. They just were loose, which is actually like a pretty good way to keep a large-bodied snake. Just like,
I'm sure they loved it.
Just like give them a room. They would like climb up the shower curtain and like look at you. Boas, they're like half arboreal as it is anyway, even when they're really big. So it's probably the most humane cage I've ever put a boa in. But Sheila so she was transported in the fall, bred in the fall, and they produced the next spring. There's like a rumor that boas won't breed the same year they're shipped.
Yeah, I've heard that.
That could be true for some boas, but many boas breed just fine. Like if they're quarantined and you've tested them for diseases, which I didn't do back then because we didn't test anything. We just guessed wildly.
You look fine.
And yeah, you're a snake. You have no legs. Checks out.
Right.
So the babies were born the next spring, and I'm like, this is the shit. Don't let anybody, the dirty egg laying types, trick you. There is nothing better than a pile of baby boas. It's like no snakes, 1 million snakes. If you have eggs, you know
that
exactly.
That does sound amazing.
Yeah, you know what's coming. They like Pip, it's cute, but you have no snakes, 1 million snakes. You're like, yes, these are for me. It smells very strange, but I'm into it now. I'm like, it's part of the high. You're like, oh yeah, it smells like babies. Let's go.
Yes.
and
all for me.
I know. There's a lot of like cool boa behaviors, like they'll push the babies to like break their sacks with their head, and they'll make like a little nest and they get ready. It's very sweet. Like it was
very maternal.
Yeah, it's like as a mammal. I'm a mammal. You're a mammal. How do you like make a connection with an animal? Well, in this case, it was because of how maternal those sort of traits were. You're like, oh, okay. Then I was like, oh yeah, boas. They're the best. So I actually ended up like getting rid of every other kind of snake I had at the time and be like, we're going all in on boas because they're like beautiful and they're interesting. And at that time, if you were a bro and you were cool, you didn't have ball pythons because nobody could afford it. You had a berm or maybe a retic, and a boa was like third tier, like cool snake. Nobody had balls.
Okay.
Either they were shitty imports or like too expensive. So if you went to a show,
like Brian Barczyk had balls and nobody else.
Yeah, and I didn't even know who Brian Barczyk was. So like he was so like high up in the game of balls, it It wasn't even germane to like me at that time. Like he was
Okay.
doing work, but I didn't. Like I knew who Pete Call was because Pete Call worked with Boas, but I didn't know that Pete Call even did the Pied Ball at that point. Like it didn't even matter. Like I can't mortgage $40,000 off my house. I'm 15.
In high school.
Yeah. Uh, but I can, get $200 scrape together to get like a really cool normal boa. And my thing, I did have like ambitions of like morph breeding and making a lot of money. I would like write in my dumb little kid journal like what my pairings would be in 2 or 3 years and how much money I would make.
That's amazing.
Yeah, well, I was a loser, so it was fine. And I would draw snakes on my like worksheets. It's like, oh, it's gonna be so awesome. Next to my like Dragon Ball Z little drawings and dragons. It's one of those kids. Gross.
Hey, I hope my kid is one of those kids.
Okay, well, it's gonna be pretty gross, so you better watch out. That was like cool plants, and my thing was morphs, but also to like selectively breed a very specific phenotype they like fantasized about. I was like, I want a nearly perfectly white boa that's like so stonewashed that the stonewashing has like faded all the black, and I had all these like, if I pick ones that are gray, I can like reduce some of like the melanin sort of yellowing that happens in boas, and all these dreams.
Hang on, pause.
Okay.
I need you to say that again. Your ambitions for a white snake?
Yeah. Because like but it's selectively bred. Like we didn't get there with morphs. We got there with slowly picking like lighter and lighter and washed out, creamy, beautiful white snake.
Saying like you shooting for a white snake, even a phenotype bred, not morph bred white snake. You are the queen of dark. So it's just fascinating to me that that was your goal at the time.
So the IMG didn't exist, and the Superfire didn't exist, and the Snow Boa, so like a visual call anery combo, was like a yellow purple snake, which is cool, but it's not like white.
Right.
So that was sort of part of it, and then like most boas were dark and terrible looking. Like a Jeff Ronnie style pastel was actually like a cool new selective breeding thing. Most boas now look like Jeff Ronnie style pastels compared to what they used to look like. Ugh. Like it was bad. So like selective breeding has made the average boa look much nicer. So I was like, instead of making them colorful, I will make them almost white with selective breeding.
It's an awesome idea. It's just not what I expected to hear come out of your mouth.
Yeah, you could buy like a nearly black boa already that was just black from just being really dirty, like from
Okay.
melt. You could already buy that basically. It wasn't
A challenge.
Yeah, you don't need to get that much blacker when they're already like 80-90% black. I guess you could be like, I'm gonna selectively breed all the way or something. I don't know. And
was your first litter, were they all normals?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It was my male was like aberrant-ish. And in boas, like aberrancy doesn't necessarily mean anything. It could be like completely random, and it could be polygenic, and it could be like monogenic, so a single gene. I never got to breed him back to one of his daughters, so I don't know what it was, but his daughters weren't particularly aberrant. So like that part of the project never panned out. I did get a snake as a baby. I guess in 2001 she was born, so it was like that fall or something, who was like very pale, very white as a baby. That was part of like the inception of like, if we took this and we multiplied it by 4, we could make a like legitimately interesting new polygenically selected line of boa that's different than a Ronnie pastel. So she was like the inception of that goal. And
Okay.
That's Umie no Heat, the snake that was like my favorite, and the one I think about every day when I judging myself, and the one I had to kill eventually.
Oh, that was the bringer of disease.
No, they probably all had it, but like she was my favorite that I just wanted not to die the most. But it doesn't matter.
Okay.
You know how that goes.
Yep.
So she's
All
like
right.
still my handle. Umie no Heat. Umie no Heat's a Dragon Ball Z song. I don't know if you knew that. Doesn't matter. It's not relevant. But you know what my interests were.
Yeah, my husband gets all of your references.
Yeah, good. Yeah, like super weeb, super weeb. And all my snakes were named Japanese words or phrases. They had very specific, detailed names that were like meant to complement each other in their future pairings. That's why now I just name everybody something stupid. If you get too attached to them, you're going to have to put them down anyway because they're all going to get arenavirus. So you might as well just call them whatever.
Tweedledoo and Tweedledum.
All of my corns are particularly stupid. They're like Snippet and Snoot and Boot and whatever. It's so dumb. It's fine. But it's okay. We're like buffering with the emotional trauma of life.
That's why themes are good.
Mm-hmm.
We don't name snakes after our daughter's best friends anymore.
No, yeah, don't do that. I crack a box. If they come back negative for whatever, then I'm like, okay, you're part of the team for now. I'm gonna give you, just look at you. All right, you're Nightmare. Nice. Go in quarantine. Bye. And like the first like impulse name is the one I pick, and it's got to be something that doesn't really matter, has no sort of emotional significance. I don't know when they like get to have emotional significance.
Well, by then their name is their name.
Yeah, I don't know.
Not even the ones you make yourself?
I had to kill a lot of snakes that I made myself in the past. I don't know. When did they get to be like my friend again? I don't know. I'm still damaged. So damaged. Spoiler alert.
Yeah. Spoiler alert. Hashtag damaged.
That's part of what's made it easier to come back to the hobby is like, no offense to the snakes, but they're much more like not the like expression of my personality or something. They're pets and part of the collection and breeders and whatever, but they're not
your identity.
Yeah, exactly. Which when you're a high school girl, you
come back to the hobby, but you skipped ahead a few years.
Yeah, and if I joined the hobby as an older person, it was like more mature, it wouldn't have been as terrible, or I would have coped a little bit better, but it was not good.
Okay, so take me back like 2001, 2002. You have your first litter, you buy this snake that you want to improve upon. When did you have to kill all your friends happen?
So this is like 2005. So at that point, I had built the collection up. I'd bought from, people will know this, like allboas.com, which was like a somewhat famous boa website that is now gone. That guy's gotten out of the hobby. I'd bought racks from Jeff Ronnie and cages, and I bought AP cages racks when AP still shipped within like 8 weeks. That's how old I am. I'm like,
isn't it like 6 months now?
No, now it's like a year. Wow. 9 months to a year. That's so like it was when PVC just started happening and like reptile shows were more, and they were still terrible, but they were getting better because there was like some years of ball python breeding, like standardizing products and stuff in there. I don't want to go to the story like too deep because it's too hard, but like the main story is I don't know who brought it in, but it was probably many animals were already infected with arenavirus by the time some animals started to die. So in the summer of 2005, a litter of Boas was born from a super hypo to one of my like specially selected high stonewash normal Boas. It's like part of the project. She had come with mites, but I cleared the mites up and she was fine. But her mate died very quickly that summer. And I was like, no symptoms on anybody, particularly at that point. I had another male that was unrelated and not breeding to them that also rolled, but I thought it was due to some like secondary infection he had. And then I moved from where I kept my snakes in my parents', they had like a pool house. I just had like a trillion snakes in the pool house and I lived in there and it was 80 degrees all the time and I loved it. It was the best bedroom. You should try it one day.
I'll get myself a pool house. 5 years.
Soon. It was like basically a snake shack eventually. It was nice. I moved them to a new location. So like they were in same cages, but like it wasn't that far away either, but there was obviously a disruption to their lives and a disruption to their schedule as they got like readjusted. And then that's when I started noticing like obvious neurological symptoms in certain animals. It's easy to like be like IBD is only neurological symptoms, but it's obviously not. We know that arenavirus is a wonderful spectrum of all kinds of fun things that can happen. Usually like the secondary infections kill them way before any sort of neurological symptoms happen, like an RI that won't stop, or a weird scale rot that this keeps going and it goes away and comes back. It's because they're all like immunosuppressed and they're struggling. Whichever ones I had far enough along their infection that they were actually able to show me neurological disorders. So I knew I had IBD. We had no idea arenavirus was the causative agent. We knew there was probably an infectious agent that was causative, but we didn't know if it was a virus or a bacteria or a prion or whatever. So then at that point in the hobby, you just have to like give up. If you like think you have arenavirus, you have to give up, because it's just like there was no way to test. You had no way to be like, this one's probably good, because I didn't like cohab them, but like I would pick one up and put it in a tub, clean the cage, take him out, put him in the cage, put another one in the tub. The tub wasn't sanitized in between.
Right.
Yeah, they went through quarantine. I assumed they were fine. So like were probably infected. So I was like, this is great. So the whole litter of super hypos started to die. The babies, within like 6 months, and then more were dying. And then I had other stuff going on, so I had to move the collection again. And at that point, the collection is like shut down. I'm like maintenance feeding them. I'm not.
How many snakes did you have before they?
I don't know, 50, 60,
Yeah.
70. At that point, it was Boas and Amazon tree boas, and that was it. No.
Okay.
I'd gotten rid of the colubrids at that point to focus on boas. The ATBs died. I mean, if I had like had more brain cells, I could have like maybe tried some sort of technique to isolate the ones that I thought had never been exposed to the ones that were acting weird. But then I would never know if they were not infected or not, because I would never have been able to test. I would have no.
Right.
All we had was
you didn't have the resources to.
Yeah, we didn't have a good test. We had blood smears where you could like take some blood and look for inclusion bodies. If you didn't see it, didn't mean anything. It was just like, if you saw it, maybe it meant something. Or you could kill them and like look at the tissues, the brain, the liver, and look for like both inclusions in cells and tissue deterioration. So do I have the resources to like call, as a 19-year-old or whatever, call multiple animals just to like look for a causative agent? No, I just kept the collection closed, let them just die as they needed to die, euthanized some of them myself. And I took one to the vet. Eventually I was like, can I have like a confirmed diagnosis? I'll pay you $400 or whatever. Still, he was like, I don't know, maybe. I was like, okay, great. Good talk.
Good talk.
Thanks. This was Scott Stahl, by the way, the like famous nidovirus denier now. I mean, not denier, but he's like, it's both bad, but don't worry about it. He's the like in-between type.
I'm going to sit on the fence and make no determined answer.
Yeah, and he's a bright guy, and we can talk about Nido all day too, but like, to me, what would have saved my collection at that point? The ones that might have been fine. Testing would have saved them. Like, testing would have saved them at inception, but testing also like,
you could have separated them according to testing results.
At the very end, in 2008, I called all of the rest. They were all asymptomatic and totally fine, but I had no idea what to do with them. I'm gonna have like Schrodinger's collection that's neither good or saleable or keepable or breedable. So what do I do with it? I ended up just culling all of them. My favorite snakes, my first snake, everything I'd ever liked and loved and dreamed about. Bye. It's the worst. Don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that. That sounds horrific.
Yeah. So that was.
Wait, so were you making money as a breeder before everything started to collapse?
Not really, because boas take 3, 4, 5 years to breed. So it was just a
hobby at that point.
Yeah, it had litters, but like only enough to like go buy more snakes, and none of them were like. I spent $1,500 on that super hypo male, and that was when hypos were like regularly $200, $300, $400, $500, no matter what they looked like, because like in the super was new. And I was like, okay, this will be like my money litter. And that's like the litter that started the decay. So I never was like particularly successful or well known or anything. I don't know.
Still at 19, you had 60 snakes and we're breeding. That's crazy to me.
Yeah, I had ambitions to be like an actual, like I knew that you could be a breeder and make money and be, this was pre Brian Barczyk, by the way. Like,
But you knew that it could be your career.
Yeah, because Pete Call was that, and
who?
Ralph Davis was that at that point. But I didn't look at them as ball python people. I looked at them as boa people, because people were boa people first before they were ball people. Pete Call, he brought in the pied ball python. Remember that guy?
From Africa?
Well, I don't know if he specifically did, but he bought it from probably Noah or whatever. He's still around, but he somewhat famously bought an anery boa to breed to all of his Pete Call strain albino boas, and basically they all started dying. So the anery he brought in to make snows knocked his whole boa collection back, whatever, a whole bunch. And then he's like, maybe I should do balls because they don't seem to die as much. So like, that's when he sort of got more into balls. And this was the time when like having a green labyrinth berm was like the peak of morphdom. Everyone wanted a berm, even if you only had a 60-gallon aquarium or whatever to put it in. It was a terrible time. Let's not go back. But it's sort of interesting now because boas are like third, fourth tier morph species. And I'm like, kind of like they were like the refined man's snake in the mid 2000s. They're like the refined keeper who wasn't doing much else. And I'm sure carpet people are be like, well, carpets were cool too then. Yeah, sure, in GTPs. But if you wanted like a cool selective breeding project, before they split the species up into 3 species, it was one of the largest ranges of any individual species. So you had every phenotype possible, from Sonora all the way down to Argentina. There's a lot of room there to selectively breed something cool and fun. But then they get arena and die, so it's not that fun. Spoiler.
Spoiler alert.
Oh, God. It sucks.
Oh, well, we're going to save that talk for another episode. So, okay,
yeah,
so
that's a whole...
forward. Okay, so you had to cull your whole collection. Is that, what'd you say, 2006?
2008.
2008.
At that point, I decided to go back. Well, I left college because it was too much stress dealing with my personal life falling apart and snakes falling apart all at the same time. I just dropped out of college, moved to Manassas, Virginia, worked at Petco. Lots of stories about how Petco works from that place because I was like, a team lead.
That's a whole nother episode.
Oh, I know. It's like, ooh, yikes. There's a freezer in the back with little black bags in it. I wonder what's in there. Somebody comes and discreetly collects those black bags. Often. Like, every once in a while. Yeah. It's not good.
Whoa. Not good.
Maybe they're better now, but I doubt it. So I go get my undergrad. I was in environmental science. My undergrad research was on wood turtles. I always liked herping. I herped in high school. That's where my fascination with Pantherophis comes from, because that's the charismatic mega herp, if you want to call it that, of the East Coast. Is it's eastern rat snake now, but then it was black rat snake, Elafe, Opsiletus.
Do you keep rat snakes?
Yeah, I do now. I mean, a corn snake's a rat snake.
Yeah, okay, but you do keep
the snake that I caught regularly.
No, yeah. Do you keep, so corn snake is a rat snake, but do you keep non-corn rats?
I have the Slowinskis, which are Pantherophis slowinskii, and I have Asian rat snakes. So you know how they split Asian rat snakes from New World rat snakes?
Totally.
Do you know that? They used to be one group. So when you went to kingsnake.com, you would see pictures of bards and pictures of mandarins and pictures of rhino rats and whatever, and so you would get all of it. And if you went to a website, someone would self-identify as both as a rat snake person, so they'd have old and new world rat snakes at the same time. So
okay,
that's why that's still true, even though they're actually not closely related at all. and their sort of taxonomic split makes perfect sense. They share the same like ecological niche in each sort of location, so their body forms are pretty similar. They're supposed to all be like bread shaped, like with
Yeah.
yeah. So it's like a multi-purpose body type that's good at climbing, but also not so thin that it can't do stuff on the ground and wrestle around. So that's like a good body type form for a snake anyway. So that's why they probably come together, and they were lumped together originally. What was the question?
You're telling how you got back into snakes.
Okay.
So you went to college. Your undergrad was wood turtles.
I did wood turtle work, lots of field herping. I presented at West Virginia Academy of Sciences. It was terrible. Terrible presentation. Don't go there. And I did it again the next year. I saw Dr. Zach Loafman. Do you know who that is? Okay, that's okay. He has a podcast now called Colubrid and Colubroid. He was like a guest.
2020 baby boomer over here.
He's mostly into colubrids, but he's like doing work now on crypto and stuff. So he's part of the Discord.
Okay, is that the podcast you wanted me to listen to, where he's going into like Nido and no, okay.
Maybe you're thinking of Elijah Snyder. Yeah. All right. Yeah. So Zach went to Marshall University, and then later went to West Lib, and then later was like, I should probably go get a PhD, and then did crayfish. But he was a reptile nerd like in the beginning. And Marshall University's the professor there was his high fecundity. He would bring in a couple trillion grad students every year for his master's program, and then a couple trillion more the next year. So there was always like 1 billion people there. I was deciding to go be a scientist. I was like, I'm going to go get my master's, and I'll go do a PhD, and I'll go do a postdoc. And then I will never have children, and I'll be like a science waif living in the swamp somewhere, studying snakes forever. That'll be what I do. But so I went to Marshall with Dr. Polly. I guess you don't know who that is, but other people will know. So like Kevin Messenger, he published that book on Asian rat snakes recently. Nope, he was 2 years before me. Nate Shepard was 2 years before me also. They were like part of the same cohort. Nate Shepard's like a Instagram guy. No, nothing. All right. These are all like field herpers, so that's part of the problem. They do mostly...
the most herping I've done is my yard.
All right, that's good. That's a start.
Gosh, I need to go earn my chops.
There's a lot of like pleasure keeping and caring for and raising and babies, but there's like a different kind of pleasure finding them in the wild and seeing them do their thing in the wild. It's related, but completely different. There's also like the Pokemon factor where it's really rare and it takes a long time to find it. And you're like, yes, we did it. And then you drink afterwards. A lot. So grad school was a lot of that. Like, get in the car, let's go. Let's get some slimy salamanders. It might rain tonight. It's 39. Let's just climb up this embankment and see and dig through the leaf litter and maybe we'll find some. And then drink when we get home.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, so it's like, but like Polly gets big groups, so it's like 20 of us, like different personalities and different skill levels, and I'm a fucking bitch the whole time, so that's fine. But like it was fun, but like grad school is like an existential crisis every day because you're like, oh, okay, I get it. So like animal sciences, any of them that are like vertebrate level, there's too many people competing for like limited slots of positions at universities. So lots of like interesting, bright adults. Yeah, it's 100% a Ponzi scheme. Interesting, bright adults slave away at like USGS positions that are GS4s that are like seasonal positions at parks and like are become like park whores that are just like traveling around, gypsies trying to like string together enough GS4 seasonal temps positions to like maybe qualify somewhere, or they're like fighting tooth and nail for like the 5 tenure positions ever. that open up every 10 years. They're adjuncting for
So there's 20 of
$3,000 a
you and
credit
then
hour.
0 jobs.
Yeah. So I was like, "Ooh, I gotta go. I guess I'll leave and have children." Because it was either like stay in and get a PhD, or like leave and try to like create a human life of being a human instead of like an academic slave person. Those are the choices.
An academic slave person that digs in the leaf litter.
It sounds funny, but it's like that is 100% its own like hedonic paradise. You're like, this moss has never been so beautiful. Let's keep going. And like snakes in the wild are so like much more like beautiful and interesting. Sorry, snakes in captivity. And it's like magical because you're like stumbling across this little dragon in the woods, and you're like, oh, here it is. He's my friend. I'm gonna let him
It's
go.
your moment of land before time.
I know. So, it's so epic. I don't know.
We have to go herping.
It's so fun. We should go. I do want to do West Texas. Do you have any feelings about West Texas?
I've heard the herping's good, but I've never been to West Texas or herping.
All right. Well, maybe we should herp first. The problem with like the Pacific Northwest, which for people who might be listening, I don't know. It's been going on a long time. I doubt they're still listening. But the Pacific Northwest is like weirdly depauperate. Like there's not that many species here. I'm assuming it's because it's like post-glacial issues, and then like the temperature, like there's not enough, thermal units in the atmosphere all summer long to like have a lot of big-bodied snakes. So over across the Cascade, you can actually get like rattlesnakes and bigger, more interesting snakes. Here we just have little garter snakes and rubber boas. So it's kind of a letdown. Like I kind of weep at night when I think about it. And there's no like terrestrial turtles. Like what the fuck? Come on. I don't even know how to function. Like this society is falling apart without terrestrial turtles. Like if you can't
I would agree.
If you can't like stumble into a turtle while you're like walking, what are we doing here? I'm so confused. So obviously I'm an East Coast transplant. Can you tell? Can you tell?
Born and raised. I don't know what I'm missing. I wonder if your being from the East Coast plays a part in your herping and growing up more reptile versed.
Yeah, this is like a weirdly new keeping community. Yes, people have been keeping here for a long time, but like it's very, for the number of people who live here, it's very untapped. So like I can definitely see like a correlation between like you might have seen alligator lizards once or twice when you were a kid versus someone like me who like, we're not like, Florida, but there's gonna be garter snakes in your yard and black racers and black rat snakes and all these different species you could discover. Just open up your Petersons, check it out. So yeah.
Yeah, no, it was just garters growing up. We didn't have, salamanders.
Yeah, I mean, this place is good for salamanders. It rains
We collected
a lot.
salamanders and, tadpoles. Does that even count? I think those are everywhere. And garters. Those are the three that I remember as a kid.
I don't know what like makes someone into like a herper. A lot of people like to play outside as children, but it doesn't like turn them into something. There's something about like the dopamine rush of being like, I found it or whatever, that like obviously you shouldn't give me cocaine because I don't think I would make it. I would just lose it. No cocaine for me. No. The personality type that is wants to pursue and find is like very specific. It's almost like a very boy personality type. So I don't know what that says about me. Like what girls want to collect, boys want to like pursue and then destroy or love. I don't know. It's weird. Boys are weird.
Okay, so you left your master's program?
Yeah, I just went and got a job. I did apply for a lot of those stupid USGS GS4 positions. Got like callbacks for some of them, and I'm like, I'm not moving to Utah for 3 months, leaving my dog behind, coming back anyway. It was like, I don't know. I just got a job. I was like, I'm gonna get a job. People are gonna pay me for the service that I provide, which is whatever my job is, instead of like what happens in grad school where you're like, I don't know, you're paid for your servitude. It's the weirdest like relationship with academia possible. I know some people have like normal relationships. I did not have a normal relationship. Mine was mostly alcohol and confusion and sadness. And then I left. The end. Although like as a more mature person now, I think about going back anyway. Just keep being one of those weirdos who just gets like a PhD for fun with no economic incentive. There's nothing quite like a trapped audience of like undergrads who don't know what you're talking about. You're just talking at them about
Right.
like mitosis or something. It's actually kind of entertaining in itself. I don't think that'll ever happen because we have
Kids, man.
we have like YouTube now. Like I actually like don't know if the pillars of academia make sense in a context where like knowledge is perfectly diffuse. Like,
Right.
you don't need to go to college really, and you can't go to college for what you want to do anyway. Maybe
Don't say that sentence in front of my children.
well, so like they should go to college, but they shouldn't go to college for the reasons that we were told to go to college, nor should they finance it in the way that we were told.
We're told. Yeah.
Yeah, I spent
So many wrong things about college finances. Okay, so fast forward me to when you got your first snake after your long being out. When was that?
So just like to bring it back, I tricked someone into marrying me with womanly guiles, and then he was in the Air Force. And we moved over here, and I was like, want to get land because I just wanted like a farm type situation because I like animal husbandry in general for any kind of animals. And I was like, oh, we have like a shack on the property. That's weird. What do I put in there? So I'd already bought goats and chickens and ducks, and I was like, okay, we'll just like get back into snakes a little bit. Whoops. Like it cascaded
Dip your
wildly.
toe. No, but what year was that?
This is 2019.
Okay.
So it's not that long ago. So there was
Not that long ago.
no. So there was an 11-year gap with no. So I had like bought a couple of random colubrids like during grad school for fun, sort of. I don't know. And I ended up selling them and like moved back because I was just like in the mood for snakes, but they didn't like reignite anything. They just were like a pet. But drives me to like herpetoculture is like collection management and like a set of goals, and you're working on those goals. And how do you think about those goals and prioritize? That's what got me excited. Not keeping one or two as a pet. Like
Right.
I've had pets. I got it. I know what that's like. It's fine. Snakes are fine. They're good pets. There's no like mystery in feeding them a live mouse for the first time. Like I got it. I don't want to watch your live feeding videos, people on Instagram. By the way, it's not the content that I'm looking for, or on YouTube. So, yikes. But since I had like a bigger room, I could get more, and I started with boas. I got a lot of boas.
Wait, so was there testing at that point?
Yes. So I tested them all on intake. Basically, because RAL exists, I have a collection. If it was still just University of Florida and blood samples and going through your vet exclusively, I would not get into snakes. The financial risk is too high to have like no convenient way to like at least double check as they come in. The risk is way too high. I don't know how anyone's functioning in this hobby, period. Especially with boas. Ball pythons.
It's fascinating that people who had experienced the crypto collapse in boas then moved on to ball pythons, and yet they're pretending like the same thing isn't happening.
Arena.
What did I say?
Crypto. It's okay.
Oh, sorry.
We'll just be
King.
clear. Yeah.
Yes, sorry. Arena. Like it's fascinating to me that that's
Yeah, 100% people were like,
not being more
these
discussed.
ones have problems, so we'll just jump. The whole industry was like, let's just jump to ball pythons because it's like good money and they seem to do okay now that we're captive breeding them more. And that's when ball pythons were like truly ubiquitous, not like they are now where people like pretend they're ubiquitous, but like they're really not. Ball pythons have like fallen in market share quite a bit. That's fine. People have different interests now. But I think this is like a more sustainable percent of the hobby as ball pythons. Like there's enough people to pick up the single gene bananas as a pet, and there's enough people to pick up the corn snake as a pet, and whatever. It's because if not every table is ball pythons.
right.
So that's good. I think we're in a good place. I don't know what the future will look like, but so I tested them coming in. There was one that I didn't test right away. She was in quarantine. She went through 3 months, and I'd already tested a bunch of the other snakes from that breeder, and they'd all been negative. Just Stupid luck, that one was actually positive. So she was brought into the room without testing, which I should have known better, but I got like complacent. I was like, maybe the arena is not that common again because these like last 15 were negative. So that snake spread arena to the formerly negative, now infected, quite a few animals. And I guess I discovered this in like February of 2020 or so. So I separated the. People are like, arena isn't that infectious. They weren't living together in the same rack. I think there was like maybe like I wasn't wearing gloves between every boa every time. I think that was the source of infection.
Wow.
Touching. So I do 100% glove changes between every boa every time, and I do boas after I do balls. I don't do them. Try not even do them the same day, but like if I need to finish some ball stuff and my clothes are on me, I do the boas last. So the people were like, "Oh yeah, I like to like play with my boa and my ball, and they're best friends." No, please don't do that. Nobody do that. Stop doing that. And I mean, I've also had snakes that like were in the same rack and didn't get infected. So there's obviously like variability in how much viral particles equals infection. But so in that summer, I actually was listening to like Snakes and the Fat Man a lot, which I don't know if Chris Eaton will ever listen to this ever in his whole life, which is fine. Who cares? And like old bullshit podcasts and old from the ground up podcasts. I went back and bullshit. The original part of Snakes and the Fat Man was not current anymore. It was like defunct. So I sort of like got sucked into ball pythons in that summer in a way that I'd never been before. Didn't care about ball pythons. Wasn't that interested in them. The market is like much better than what it was before, and it's much more interesting. You used to have a polygenic breeding project for boas. Well, you can sort of turn those feelings into a ball python project, but now they're just, instead of like qualities, they're like genes. So what do you want? What sort
Actual
of like
genes that you can name.
And people are like, "Oh, that's stupid." Like they look down on the market because it's not enough polygenic breeding, and I'm like, I don't know. Like this, it's super fungible. Like I said, like I could tell you quality version, whatever that means, like of these 3 genes is probably this much money in this gender and this age and size. Like I can, like that's a good, the ability to price something accurately is good for a business. Boas, I don't know. You know, does it have arena? Is it pink enough? I don't know. I price boas now and I still feel like it's half made up. Yikes.
It's so interesting. So boas are your like true love.
Yeah, but
in the reptiles?
They've hurt my feelings twice now. I'm mad at them.
I was just going to say they've broken your heart twice.
Yeah. So I was like, okay. I did check the balls for arena when I found arena had snuck into the boa colony, and it didn't make it over there. So like the habit of doing balls first and boas second was good. It protected at least like the ball room, which is like a separate room sort of. The balls haven't been universally from the very beginning tested for nido, but I tested like chunks of nido of like animals. Like if I bought a collection of 10, I would like randomly test 5, like the adults or the males, the ones that are like most likely exposed. And I've retested different ones for different reasons, and they stay negative. So I don't think nido's ever gotten in to that room that I know of yet. The colubrid part of the collection, I picked up a couple animals last year in 2020, colubrids, corn snakes, and whatever. I was just trying to diversify. Like I felt like I was too all in on a particular kind of pet. I was like, okay, we'll pick up a set of colubrids to just sort of round it out. They should all be easy to take care of, easy to explain someone how to take care of it, easy to start someone out. So like I picked up the Japanese rat snakes and mostly corn snakes, a western hognose. And now I have a king. It's just sort of a smattering, but mostly it's corn snakes because I want like less species and more depth within that species. The people who have like a Noah's Ark 2 and 2 and 2 and 2, that's admirable, but I did that already. I did that in high school, and that's okay, but you can never like dial in on a project if you don't have enough copies of snakes. Right. Like how do you selectively breed if you only have 2? You're just putting 2 together. Like the people who are like obsessed about quality and locality and all that stuff, you only have 2. You need to like have enough breadth within your species to like make good choices about good pairings, in my opinion.
Well, I probably have 50 males and females total that I'm breeding, and I don't feel like I have enough to do what I want to do. So how could you do that with two?
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are like, I want two of this locality because I just think it's like beautiful, like a king snake. So they don't have necessarily have a project in mind, which is
Okay.
fine. That's not what interests me. It's just like to carbon copy more snakes. Like MBKs are cool looking, but there's no project there. What are you gonna do? Make them less black, more black? They turn black. Like that's the end of the project.
Right.
There's no intellectual interest for me. Maybe if you're like the husbandry is cool, but like that's not enough. I need a project. I need either a morph or a selection criteria within the locality or type. Whew, I don't know. MBKs. I don't get that one. Like that's all about just like making pet fodder if that's what you're into, which is not. Even though I like breed pet species on purpose, I don't breed to make something to sell. I breed because I want to see something in my production, polygenic
Yeah.
or not, or morph based. But
Well, and like I have a trio of kings, and none of them, they don't look anything alike. And if you breed them together, you can get like you don't know what you're going to get, and that's kind of exciting. But with an all black snake, you just get more all black snakes. You're right. Yeah. Those are big in the pet industry right now though.
and they have been for a while since like they were bought up by uh, the Hong Kong buyers and then the mainland Chinese buyers, and that's fine. I think certain species that go through their like day in the sun and everyone's really excited about them and the supply goes down and then the price goes up. Um, Being able to like promote a rare species on Instagram or YouTube and be like, hey, look at this, it's really cool looking and the ecology is really cool and you can set it up like this makes the 30 that are available get snapped up like that. Then obviously the price has to rise to reflect that. And that's probably the business we should be in is buying snakes and then like artificially promoting them and then selling them at a premium.
I was just thinking, I wish I had that kind of power on the market.
No, there's some national breeders with large platforms that may or may not do that sometimes.
For sure.
No names named.
No names named.
I've never
no
named.
names needed.
I will never name a name, except I might sometimes. No, it's fine. Like speculating on species isn't my jam either. I really, because I literally want snakes that are good pets already, come in nice colors, easy to take care of, and have a viable commercial presence. The people are like, I mean, I gotta get this weird rear fang thing. That's cool, but nobody really wants it, and it's kind of maybe it's deadly to some people sometimes. I don't need like the like herpetoculture credit of like doing a good job at this rare esoteric species. Like
Right. I concur. I do not.
the weirdest thing I have are the Slowinskii and the Japanese rat snakes, I guess, but they're not even that weird, really. Slowinskii is like a kind of brown corn snake with a sort of weird body type, and
You
it's
just got
like
those, right?
so. I had the silver leafs, which is the like sort of the sun-kissed equivalent mutation. You know what sun-kissed is in corn snakes?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so like it's probably if it's not the same, it's allelic, but it like arose independently just in them, and it's like a silver base coat with like these like gold medallions instead of brown saddles. It's like the most beautiful snake ever. Maybe I don't know. I remember looking at them on like Kathy Love's website when I was a wee lass in high school and being like the Kisatachi, like that's what the pet industry name of it was at that time, and be like, wow, it's so shiny. Never had them, but that was one I would like. When I knew I was going to get back into corn snakes, I wanted to get pure as far as we could tell, Kisatachis and their morph, which is silverleaf, just to like fulfill the dream of tiny me.
Yeah,
have
like my daughter who wants rainbow boas.
Rainbow boas are okay, like it's fine, but like, who was it? Was it VPI? It was somebody who like famously said, maybe it was the Barkers, that they stopped breeding rainbow boas not because they couldn't breed them or sell them, but because people regularly killed them.
Regularly.
Yeah.
So often,
That they,
especially babies.
yeah, they're like, it's not worth it. I could make a lot of
They just
money.
dried them
But
out
yeah,
and
like it's 2 minute. The like attrition rate is too high. I was
can't
like,
sleep at night.
yeah, I was like, I can respect that. Like if someone's like I'm pretty sure I could give somebody a corn snake, anybody in the whole earth, or a king snake, they'd be fine. That king's gonna live, unless you like don't give it water, which fuck you if you do that or something. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like for a long time, not like one day like a white lip where they're like, oh no, I'm desiccated, I die. It'll be fine. A ball python, they have their like weird quirks, so they need it to be pretty humid and pretty hot, but they don't like roll on you the second you dry them out like a rainbow boa or a white lip.
No, I mean, they're so hard to kill. You see some pretty messed up rescues that have been in really poor conditions for months and months and months and
Yeah.
months, and they're still kicking. So, no, but rainbow boas, yeah, you don't miss down their cage one day and they're dead the next. That's
Yeah.
why we don't have one. I
And
told
it-
her she had to be 12.
Yeah, it'd be fine to like get it, I don't know, for like the intellectual stimulation of like your kid to be like, this is a very specific kind of pet that needs to be treated differently.
Right.
I want my business to be a business, and part of that is picking animals that do well here and there and everywhere
In the pet
between.
industry.
Yeah. The only like animal I've even like considered adding that is maybe like a little bit temperamental or something would be like a green tree python. And they're actually like not that bad either once they're dialed in.
I thought you preferred green tree boas. Amazon tree boas? No?
Emerald tree boas.
Emerald tree boas?
I like the heads of green tree pythons better.
Okay.
The weird chlamydia that seems to be in emerald tree boas concerns me because I don't think there's a good assay for that disease yet. I don't get into green tree pythons right now because the price is inflated because A, there's no imports hardly, and B, there's not that much production because a lot of the animals that did exist 5 years ago died in what may or may not be a related sort of NIDO event that sort of went through the community 4 years ago. I don't know the exact time, but a lot of them are gone, either culled or died. So there's not enough animals. So like a US CBB that's locality, not even like a designer, was $1,500, $2,000, and it's just gonna turn green just like all the rest of them. It's fine, but I'm happy to wait for whenever.
But what prompted you to get a king snake?
I did want like a cleanup animal for slugs and kinked corns, which the corn sort of like baby attrition rate is actually much higher than it is in like a ball python. Like the amount of babies that come out that are like not that good or kinked or like failure to thrive, they don't eat. So I mostly wanted it for that. I would never feed like a king snake an animal that was older for crypto reasons. Like if you had like an external baby come in, I would never feed it to a king snake, by the way.
Okay.
It was mostly just to add a little bit of flavor to my colubrid room because it's so corn dominated. I like kind of lost my mind. Oh, Low Belly Reptiles has some corn snakes, and I bought like 7 or 8 at the same time. They're all probably like brothers and sisters. I was like, just stroll them in here, just like bring them all. I just want to just pile them in here. And then she like messaged me the day she was gonna ship. She's like, oh, I have this other one. I'm like, it's beautiful. Add it to it. Here's your PayPal. Deet, deet, deet. And I messaged her, and she like delayed shipping to like instead of like Tuesday for Wednesday, it was like Wednesday for Thursday to add this other one in. I like Miami's are like absolutely like the most attractive thing I've ever seen. It's like a gray band king snake, but better. Which don't tell any gray band king snakes I said that. A gray base with like a red maroon saddle with like big black borders. There's nothing better than that. I will fight probably any ball python if they say they're better than that, because I don't believe you. And I like ball pythons, but it's like properly red and like big contrast.
You don't get the properly red.
Yeah, it is crazy. So like
it's not in the color palette yet.
And that's all selective breeding. Like that phenotype does exist in the wild, but like, do you want to make it even more? When you try to like cross in a morph or whatever, you have to like selectively breed back to the Miami like phase again. So you have to like keep to make a really cool like Miami honey or whatever like JT has. You know who JT Fitzgerald is? Silent Hill Reptiles? What about Walter Smith?
Nope.
Okay, whatever. It's fine. You can take the like phase of Miami or Okati and apply it to a set of mutations or whatever, and that like actually drastically changes their phenotype. You know, JKR has two GHI Mojave females. We're the dam of two different Kraken clutches. Do you know?
Okay.
Do you know this fact? I don't know. Okay.
I did not know that fact, but I know I know about Kraken.
The first Kraken was sired by a mom that's like very diffuse. All the sides are like completely blown out, like a really like high quality. Let me air quote this one because it's all like perspective. GHI Mojave, and the second mom, there's a lot more space in the bands. She has a reducer gene in her, either blade or like some polygenic mix. So her Kraken babies are completely different, even though the sire was the same than the mom that does not have a reducer gene in her. Did you notice like the difference in the two Krakens
but now I'm gonna go back
and the
and
Kraken
look. Yeah.
2.0s? There you go. Like,
which one did you like better?
The first ones.
Okay,
I
that
like
been my guess.
Busy, complicated sides. More complicated, the better.
Yeah, you don't like reduction genes.
No, I don't know. And I do like Inchy though. Like that's for personality flaw or something. Like Inchy adds a lot of color while it's doing its reducing. Like if you could have an Inchy that didn't reduce, that would be awesome. And like the head's cool on an Inchy, but Inchy clowns are sort of not that exciting to me.
I like Inchy clowns a lot, and I like Inchy pieds.
Well, Inchy pieds are the best base.
Best
form.
base, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. You need that to do something with a pied, basically. But a super Inchy clown with the dots is like cool. But how much like space on the pattern do you have to work now with just dots? It's like a Confusion Batman. It's more dots. So like, yes, it's expensive and cool looking, but like the ability to play is in how much pattern is there. So anything that adds more pattern, you get to play with. So I want more pattern on my. So like, if I were to select a female clown, I specifically do not select like just to buy, just to add.
Right.
I do not pick reduced ones or even kind of reduced ones. I want teardrops the whole way down, and I want big, obvious alien head eyes, and no like missing spots, because that will make all of your combos more like complicated.
Interesting, because I'm the opposite. I'm drawn more towards
it's
blade.
fine.
I know you tell me that you hate it.
We all got
towards like the Inchy blade reduced. I think it looks better, but you're right. With combos, you're limiting yourself.
Super blade, super Inchy clown, or maybe a super blade one copy Inchy, where it's just like the stripe that's black. And the head looks really intense because it's concentrating color and squishing it together. It's a cool look.
Not much you can do with that.
Yeah, we know complicated clowns are what people are really excited about. Pompeii's, Kraken combos, just like those weird. People will put up like a super HRA clown, and it's actually like really busy and black and crunchy looking. You're like, what is? I don't even like HRA, but I'm in. Sign me up. Whatever, because it just looks like a completely different kind of animal. And clown gives you like the head that makes it look like who knows what it is. I don't know. Anything. I would just never pick a female that I even suspected would have blade in it. I would sell it or whatever if I like produced a very reduced clown female. Sounds crazy. And I would go out of my way to find females that are female clowns that are high pattern. That's why my GHI is kind of a losing proposition, sort of. Whoops.
GHI reducing in clown?
It has extreme gene in it, I think. So it's reducing the clown. GHI is not in itself reducing.
Yeah, I didn't think so, because it blows out patterns. It doesn't.
Right, but my GHI clown
has
like
the
possible extreme and is extreme. Oh, I did finally hear back from like the producers of my animal's father, so like the grandfather. I heard back from that guy. He's like, I didn't keep any of this either. And I guess the people at home would want to know. Like, I actually think it's extremist, potentially. So het tri-stripe and not extreme in this clown. Because they're striping in a way that is not normal for extreme in GHI combos.
So why is het tri-stripe called extremist?
It wasn't. They found extremist in extreme. They're like, this looks similar, but it's like more strong. We don't know why. Like in the single gene form.
Okay.
So they teased them apart. Some of them were sold as extreme and just went to the wind, or sold as nothing because they weren't sure what it was or whatever. Then some people were finding, extremes, super extremes are white backed instead of black backed, like a tri stripe. Do you know this?
I know very little about extreme gene other than what I've gleaned from my experience with your GHI clown.
Okay, so the tri stripes are black backed with the alien head eyes connected, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
And then extreme gene is the opposite. They look like a super stripe or something, where the back is yellow, like, and the saddles have merged together beside it.
Okay.
So you can actually find tri stripes right now that are both. So they will reverse, and then they will black back, and then will reverse again. Those tri stripes are extremes or super extremes fighting with the tri stripe.
Fascinating. So you think that yours is
Like the KMR tri stripes came out of extreme stock. I don't know what they are.
So
I
it's
just
like
know
the
that they
leopard
don't
and the
look
leopard,
like extreme.
leopard and pied that was teased apart.
Yes. I think Ken or whoever he got it from or whatever was breeding stuff that looked stripy and cool together to like maybe polygenically enhance that. And he accidentally like put two genes into the same project. And one of them just happened to be het tri-stripe. It's like how Krypton got into Ultramel. Or Cryptic, sorry.
So what are you going to do with that?
Breed him to a tri-stripe. Everyone I've like talked to in like the lineage is like, I don't have like a pair anymore. I don't have a male and a female that are adults. Nick at Renowned Reptiles kept a male, but not any of the sisters. Not the original male, just like a son. And then the guy he brought from has like an older female and like a daughter or something that's like from that lineage, but none of the original animals. And I was just like, man. But you can't like claim het tri-stripe until you're got a tri-stripe in your hands.
Right.
I gotta call it extreme. The sort of inception of this idea is from Royal Canadian Reptiles because he was talking a lot about how some of his extreme was actually extremist, and he was like teasing them apart. Finally, years later, like 9 years later, he's like, "Whoops, these ones are like too strong, and these ones aren't. What are they? They're het tri-stripe."
I see. I love ball pythons. That right there, it's just like that is exciting to me.
Yeah, I think the like discovery and the history and finding like something of that you didn't know about something in your collection, and even like if you ignore the financial boon hypothetically or whatever, it's still interesting.
Absolutely.
Yeah. There's a lot of not commercially viable morphs that are still interesting that someone found them. You know, like Grimm. I mean, it's viable as like people use it, but he didn't like make $1 million off of Grimm.
Right.
You know, he didn't like launch
it's
it
still
like
yeah,
GHI
it's still
or
like
something.
it's still a low level morph, even though it's really cool.
So you could find a Grimm or Grimm-like thing that has value to the hobby or whatever.
It's that land before time paleontologist youth actualized in your home in your breeding program, kind of.
The dopamine rush of discovery, no matter where it is. But like you have to like temper that feeling with still keeping it commercially viable, because I could literally sit around all day and discover things in boas, and I'd be like, we're gonna have to make a white boa again. It's only gonna take 30 years, even though we have perfectly reasonable looking, morph combos that make white boas or whitish boas.
Your grayscaled one is so amazing.
Yeah, like that looks what I wanted it to look like selectively breeding wise. And frankly, no one's going to pay me for that lineage particularly. Like if I were to start selectively breeding for it, because the boa market is pretty clear. They've spoken. Like they like color, they like cleanness, and they like that color and that cleanness. Those like pastel lineages, which there's now like 400 for some reason, even though they're all probably related one way or the other, in morphs. They put a pastel in a morph, and that's what people want. They almost don't want anything else. They don't want a white boa or a clean boa or a dark boa or a high contrast boa or a really yellow boa or any of the other selective breeding projects you could pick. They don't want that. They want color, almost to the exclusion of everything else. Unless you're talking about localities. People have like very specific selective breeding projects within like Surinams or whatever. But even then, it's still pretty color based. I disagree, though. I like white snakes and gray snakes.
It's so weird. It's so weird for me to hear come out of your mouth.
Yeah, in ball pythons, when things get white, they get like weird looking, like fuzzy. I think that's what I don't like about, like a pewter. Gross. Sorry, pewters.
Yeah, I was pastel in it. That's a bad example.
Yeah, but like I think why I don't like it is because it's fuzzy, because it's pastel. Like it looks diffuse. But then I like stonewashed boas, so it doesn't make sense. Maybe I just don't know what I'm talking about. Yikes. All
I
right.
think we've hit our 2 hours.
100%. This is probably, I have to edit a lot.
Yeah, so much for not being a time suck of editing.
I I should have like written a time.
You almost should like cut it into two.
Oh no, it's fine. The hard part's gonna be like the re-listens.
Yeah. How do you want to do that?
Well, we talked a lot. How do you feel?
I have no idea how that's going to translate into people wanting to listen to us, but I enjoyed the conversation.
No, it's all right. We made it. We made it to the end of the first episode.
We did.
If anybody,
I learned a lot. Jeez, if anybody listens to the whole 2.5 hours, they deserve like a credit from our store or something.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll get a little bit more. Like the telling your story part is a long-winded thing anyway, and is apt to have tangents. But whenever we have whatever more discrete sort of episodes, we're just touching base on a couple things. It'll be a little bit shorter. I guess we'll call that the end of the story. If anybody has any questions, you can reach out to me. I'm Jessica Hare, Hare Hollow Farm on Instagram. I might not answer though. Kind of mean. Depends on if it's like a nice message. How about you? Where can they find you at?
Don't find me.
Yeah,
No,
I almost
kidding.
feel like that's good. Please don't find me.
I'm Jana King with ASM Royal Tails. You can reach out on Instagram. I'm also on Facebook, but reach out on Instagram.
And we'll be doing podcasts with release schedules once a week. So check us out.
That's the goal.
At your local podcatcher of choice. All right. Good night.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.